welcome you to the video lecture for Lecture 8, Unit 2. This is the measures of central tendency. And in this lecture, we're going to be talking about the mean, median, and mode and the mid-range. So the first thing I want to do is I want to show you just a graphic that I found. So this just shows the average time that's spent on doing different activities for a particular day for persons that are employed, ages 25 to 54 that have children. So here you can see that the mean or the average number of hours sleeping is 7.6. So you might be above or below that 8.8 hours for working or related activities, and so on and so on. Now, if this average day does not sound like your typical day, it's because these numbers are for all persons in the U.S., ages 25 and 54, and for all days of the week combined. So you won't necessarily be, you might be above or below any of these particular averages. So the objective for this lecture is that we're going to go ahead and summarize data using measures of central tendency, the mean, median, mode, and the mid-range. So the first thing I want to talk about is some definitions. So a statistic. A statistic is a measure that's obtained by using data values from a sample. So a statistic pertains to a sample, whereas a parameter pertains to a population. So it's a measure obtained by using all data values from a specific population. I also want to talk about rounding. We have to be careful about rounding if we're going to use a value in another formula after that particular value is obtained. So don't round until your final answer. And so the first thing that we're going to talk about here is the mean. So the mean is also known as the average, and it's just found by adding the data values to adding all the data values and divided by the total number of data values. And so remember, we talked about statistic and a parameter. Now when we talk about the mean, the symbol x bar represents the sample mean, and the Greek letter mu is used to represent the mean for the population. Now the formula for both of these is exactly the same. So x bar or mu is equal to the summation of the data points, so x1, x2, x3, divided by n, and n is the total number of data points we have. Now that big E is just summation, so that means that we're going to take all of those x's, add them all up, and divide it by n. So that's just summation x divided by n. Or if it's the population, it's mu. So again, in statistics, in the field of statistics, Greek letters are used to denote parameters and Roman letters are used to denote statistics. And assume that the data that's obtained is from samples unless otherwise specified. So the first thing is we're going to go ahead and look at the number of days off per year for a sample of individuals. So what's the mean number of days off? So here we have our sample, and so we're going to use x bar. So the summation of x, so we take all of our data points and divide it by 9 because we have 9, so it's 276. That's the summation of x divided by 9, and the average number of days off is 30.7. So rounding rule for the mean. The mean should be rounded to one or more decimal places than occurs in the raw data. So if you remember here, our raw data is 20, 26, 40. So those are integers. But our mean actually is 30.7, which has a decimal point or decimal place. So the next thing is, how do we find the mean for group data? And we've done group data for some of the examples that we've done in class. So the first thing that you do is you make a table, and you're going to have 4 columns. The first one is your class, or your classes that you're going to construct. The next one is the frequency in each class. Then we're going to go ahead and find the midpoint. And then column D, or the 4th column, is going to be the frequency times the midpoint. So step 2, obviously you have to find the midpoint. You're going to place that in column C. Step 3 is you're going to multiply the frequency by the midpoint for each class, and you're going to place that in column D. Step 4 is you're going to find the sum of column D. And step 5, you're going to calculate the mean by doing the summation of column D, so the summation of the products divided by the total number of data points. So here we have an example. So here I have my classes, and I have the frequency in each one, and the summation of column B is 20. And that's going to be my denominator in my formula. So the next thing is I find the midpoint, so 10.5 plus 5.5 divided by 2 gives me 8, and so on for all of the classes. Column D, what I did was we did 1 times 8 equals 8, 2 times 13 equals 26, and so on. Now the summation of column D, or the sum of the product, is 490. So to find x bar, what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and divide 490 by 20, and that gives us the mean is 24.5 miles. So for this particular data set, the mean was 24.5 miles. The next thing we're going to talk about is the median. So the median is simply the midpoint of the data set, and the symbol is capital MD. So how do we find the median? So the first thing is that you arrange the data in order, either ascending or descending, doesn't matter. Then you select the middle point. Now, if there's no middle point, you can find the mean between the two middle points. So if you have an odd number of data points, you'll have a middle point. If you have an even number of data points, you will not have a middle data point. So here's an example. The number of rooms in the 7 hotels in downtown Pittsburgh. So here's the raw data. We're going to go ahead and find the median. So the first thing that we do is we arrange the data in order, either ascending or descending, it doesn't matter. So here we did it in ascending order. So we started with the smallest value to the largest value. So how do we find the median? We'll just find the middle value. Since it's an odd number of data points, our median is just that middle value. In this particular example is 401 rooms. Now the mode. The mode is simply the value that occurs the most often. Now, a data set that only has one value that occurs with the greatest frequency, this is unimodal. If there's 2 values, it's what we call bimodal. And if it's more than that, it's what we call multimodal. So here's an example to find the mode. Here we have signing bonuses of 8 NFL players for a specific year. The bonuses are millions of dollars. So here's the raw data. So the first thing we're going to do, and you don't have to do this, but it makes it a little easier, is to arrange the data in either ascending or descending order. And by doing that, it stands out that 10 million is actually the mode. So since 10 occurs the most, that means that the mode for this particular data set is 10 million. Now, when we talk about group data, the mode for group data is what we call the modal class. And the modal class is simply the class with the largest frequency. And in this example, here we can see that the class from 20.5 to 25.5 is the modal class. So now the mode is the only measure of central tendency that can be used in finding the most typical case when the data is either nominal or what we call categorical. So here we have boat registrations. So it's obviously that the Westmoreland is the modal class for this particular data set. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how to use Excel to find the mean, median, and mode. So here's a small company, consists of the owner, the manager, salespeople, salesperson, and 2 technicians. All the annual salaries are there. Then assume that this is the population. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and find the mean, median, mode using Excel. So let me just get back here. Okay, so here's the data, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how to use Excel. So here's my data. I'm going to go ahead and place the mean, median, mode here. So for the mean, what I do is I just type in equal, and I start typing in average, and then it'll pop up. So I just double click it, highlight my data, and press enter. So the mean for this data set is 20,000. Now my median, again, equal, start typing in median, make sure you type it in correctly, double click it, highlight the data, and it gives you the median. In this case is 12,000. Now the mode, we're going to do it the same way. Be careful with the mode, because if it's bimodal or multimodal, Excel was only going to give you one of them. So it's not really useful for data sets that have 2 or more modes. But we can, if it's just unimodal, we can go ahead and find it by just typing in MOD and mode, highlight the data, and we get 9,000. Alright, so the next thing we're going to do is find a mid-range. And the mid-range is just defined, is just the sum of the lowest and highest values in the data set divided by 2. The capital MR is used for the mid-range, and there's the formula, lowest plus highest divided by 2. So I'm going to go ahead and do an example. So in the last 2 winter seasons, the city of Brownsville, Minnesota reported these numbers of water line breaks per month. I'm going to go ahead and find the mid-range. So going back to Excel, so here's the raw data. We already know how to find the min. We've done that before. We already know how to find the max. So in this case, the mid-range is just 8 plus 1 divided by 2, and it gives us 4.5. So the mid-range for this data set is 4.5. All right. The next thing we're going to talk about is weighted average. So sometimes we wish to average numbers, but we want to assign more importance or weight to some of the numbers. So example is grades. Right, quizzes, tests, homework, so on. GPA, an A is worth more than a B, and a B is worth more than a C, and so on. So the way that we find the weighted average. So to find the weighted average of a variable x by multiplying each value by its corresponding weight and dividing the sum of the products by the sum of the weights. What the heck does that mean? So here's the formula. So for weighted averages, what we do is we take the weight times the data point plus the weight of the second data point times the second data point, and we add all those up. So we multiply and add. So the summation of the product Wx divided by the summation of the weights. So W are the weights and X's are the values. Now, an example here would be to find GPA for a particular semester. So this is just an example here because the data in Excel is slightly different, but let's, particular student, English, psychology, 3 credits, 2 credits, 4 credits, so on. So A, C, B, and D. So what's the GPA, right? So I'm going to show you how to find that GPA, but like I said, it's a different data set in Excel. So here's my information. So here's a student that took these courses in a particular semester, right? So statistics, physics, sociology, literature, and they took tennis. So the credits for each class. So statistics was a 4-credit class, physics was a 5-credit class, and so on and so on. So the total number of credits was 15. Now here's the grade that the student received in each class. So they got an A, a B, and a D. And then the point. So obviously an A is 4, and a B is 3, and so on, right? A D is 1. So what I'm going to do is you're going to sum up your credits, and then you're going to multiply the credits times the points. So 4 times 4 is 16, and you can do that for each one, and then you're going to sum up that column. So this is the sum of the products, and this is just the sum of the weights. So I'm going to do 52 divided by 15. So this particular GPA for this student for this semester is a 3.4667. So the next thing I want to do is find the weighted average for a particular vehicle. So we have 3 models, model A, B, and C. The number of cars, model A is 8, 10, and 12 respectively, and the price is $10, $12, and $8,000 respectively. So how do we find the weighted average for these particular vehicles? So what we do is, so here's the data. Here the models A, B, and C. The number, which is our W, so it's 8, 10, and 12. So that sums up to 30. The price is X, so it's 10, 12, and 8,000. So we multiply W times X, and this is in this column, and we add that up. So the summation of the product is 296,000. The summation of the weights is 30. So the weighted mean for this particular group of vehicles is $9,866.67, and that's a weighted average. So the last thing that I want to talk about is distribution shape. So symmetric distribution is one where the mean, median, and mode are all equal to each other. If the distribution is negatively skewed, then the mode is the larger one and the mean is the smaller value. And if it's positively skewed, then the mode is the smallest value and the mean is the largest value. And that's the end of lecture 8, unit 2. Thank you.